Okay. Before we start, I would like to know, how do you find reading?
This one,
Hmm?
this one I think might have been a tad bit easier to understand than the 5 aggregates. Not that I understood it,
Yeah.
but it
But
was
this
easier.
is
It
yeah,
wasn't
this is
as
more systematic
but
and
it wasn't as difficult. The 5 aggregates kind of were difficult.
okay.
This one made a little bit more sense.
Any other comments on this reading?
It actually seemed to make a lot of sense to me. It was very systematic.
Systematic.
I know for years I had problems with the Eightfold path,
Hmm.
and this seemed to do a pretty good job of doing that.
I think I just really like the way Bhikkhu Bodhi explained dukkha,
Okay.
and it made things seem more understandable.
Okay.
The entire piece.
Yes, I think he very interestingly he divided the whole Four Noble Truths. First 3 as the doctrine, and the last one as the path. You know, so yeah, so that model was. So please sign in the attendance sheet. Yeah. Our writing pads in the basement actually. Yeah. In the room. Okay, so welcome all of you to our introduction to Buddhism class. Today is our lesson 3, the Four Noble Truths. Last week I told you that Bhante Punna will teach this week, but that was a mistake because the topic that he's going to teach will be in our next class, which is not the next week, because next week we have a retreat, so the following week. So Bhante Punna will teach on the following week. So let us focus on the Four Noble Truths, which is the very fundamental teachings of the Buddha. And one time Buddha said that in my whole career as a spiritual teacher, I have taught 2 things. That is the dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. How dukkha arises in human mind and how it can be ceased. And that is what I have taught in my whole career. You know, that is a very important declaration. So that shows that how the Four Noble Truths are very fundamental to the teachings of the Buddha. But of course there are other doctrines which is connected to this basic doctrine. So let us try to focus on this topic today. So we hope to achieve these objects, you know, at the end of the lesson, to identify basic problem that the teachings of the Buddha address, and also describe the basic model underlying the Four Noble Truths. And also to explain 3 aspects of the Buddhist gradual path, which means the Noble Eightfold Path. There are 3 aspects to it, so we try to be familiar with that. So that is, these are our objectives today. So I plan our lesson today. First I will give a summary, and I will emphasize few concepts in the lesson that I want you to be familiar with. And then I would like to review answers. You know, I got very interesting answers this week, so we will go through the answers and try to discuss them. And also I would like to pay some attention to the last question that I will pose to discuss little detail with the problems with the practice. That what are the problems do you encounter in this practice? And then if you have enough time, let's have some open discussion. And today, after our class, and we all are going to have a very good opportunity. These days we have a new visiting monk. He just arrived yesterday. He's from UK. but he came from Canada, and so he's willing to talk to you. So you got a new opportunity today after the class. If you can, I encourage you to stay for a while, and then he will also be here to have a discussion with you. So let's start with the summary. I would like to focus on the word dukkha, that many of you have dealt with that in your answers. So etymologically, we can divide this word into two parts. One is du, and other is kha. So when this du is a prefix, and kha is a root of a verb, and then when you join this together, you get extra kha to easy pronunciation, so you get the word dukkha. So du means here difficult, hard, and kha is to bear and endure. So you get the sense that something that is difficult to endure, difficult to bear, that kind of meaning. But I would like to discuss with you the pre-Buddhist use of the word. Before the Buddha used this word to refer to this particular experience, the quality of the experience that we all have, there's a pre-Buddhist usage of the same term. I found this in Professor Kalupana's explanation, and he has found, and few others also have found, the same term dukkha was used in other contexts, and the Buddha actually used this concept, this word, to describe the quality of our experience. And pre-Buddhist use of the word is actually, people used to say dukkha when they usually are Aryans, and they had carts, with bull cart. So when they have problem with the fitting of the axle to the wheel, so we have the axle, and then there's a joint to the wheel, and so if that hole and the joint is not smooth, and that condition is called dukkha. So which means ill-fitting axle hole.
In that context, is the word dukkha a noun or a verb?
Kha in that case, it become an adjective.
Okay.
It's an adjective.
So you're saying it's a dukkha wheel, it's a poor wheel.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a poor fitting wheel. It become an adjective. So you get the sense that it's not fitting rightly. So you have this misfitting, and you have that non-smooth character, or difficult grind, or unharmonious, conflicting, distressful, that kind of meaning. So when you bring this pre-Buddhist meaning to the Buddhist context, when the Buddha used this idea, that when you have ill-fitting axle, what's going to happen, and what's the quality of the experience you are going to have in the vehicle, and how the ride is going to be. It's going to be unstable, going to be unsmooth. That's exactly the kind of experience that Buddha was referring, when he used the word dukkha. So I think this sometimes helps us to understand. Usually in our life we also have a kind of hole, an axle hole, or we can call it like a model. Right? We have created a model about how people should be, how the things should be, how that's even when you go for occasion, even when you come for this class, unconsciously you create a model. Okay, this is what's going to happen. So you have this model. It's like axle hole, and you try to fit that model with external situation, external people, and most of the time what you find is unfitting. Right? That model is not fitting with what is over there, and that experience is not quite right, not fitting. That's in the fundamental level, and that is common with all of our experiences. So Bhikkhu Bodhi suggests a few terms to translate this term dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, inadequacy, and gap between our expectation and actual situation, like gap between our model and the actual experience, and that difference. And I would like to refer to the suggestion given by you, and these are the terms that I found in your answers, in your suggestions. So I found the word dissatisfaction, an essential incompletion, finitude, uneasiness, insecurity, discontent, never enough feeling, angst. So if you would like to comment any of these words, or if you recognize your suggestion here, if you like to elaborate what you mean by that, and you're most welcome. Yes?
You know, Bhante, in other traditions, you know, there's sometimes in the working of the soul, there's either consolation or desolation.
Okay.
And I now understand that in Buddhist terminology of dukkha, it's very much of desolation. You know, being separate from, or an angst, or anxiety. It's really quite the same.
The same, yeah.
A desolation of of the soul, or the psyche, or
whatever.
you know.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the word angst is suggested by Dan, right? Dan, can you explain a little bit what you mean by the word angst?
I think it comes out of the existential tradition, and it referred to the basic, existential existence is characterized by the fundamental anxiety. Just
Anxiety, survival, or
pardon?
anxiety for survival, or anxiety?
I think it's broader than just survival.
Okay.
It's kind of a hard term to define.
Kind of like a
Okay.
cognitive dissonance between expectations and what's really here.
Yeah, like a
right?
basic
Right.
cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Okay. So I really like your suggestions, and I recorded them. Never enough feeling, and I think Ellen suggested dis-ease. I like this translation. Though unfortunately, we cannot use this, because when you say disease, we have a different meaning to it. But if you can have like ease is what that fitting. It's okay, contentment, and this is like dukkha, that kind of idea. So then we get. But of course, in Buddhist sense, it's not simply temporary dis-eases that we experience, but it's also existential kind of dis-ease that we all have. Yes.
It's a definition of existential.
Yeah, maybe you have to help me. Existential, related to existence. Is that? Can you help me to define existentialism?
Not other than to say that there was a particular period in Western philosophy over in Europe.
Yeah.
The root word is existence. Existential means relating to existence.
Yeah. I mean, philosophy used to be more on reason, more on mathematics, more on reasoning out. So when philosophy is trying to pay attention more on this problem, the suffering of the actual human conditions, and we call that existentialism.
Okay, I got it.
Not simply logic. Yeah. I think I'm making sense. Yeah. Okay. Then I would like to pay attention to the underlying model of the Four Noble Truths. So if you simply translate the Four Noble Truths, we say the truth of dukkha, and truth of the origin of the dukkha, or the truth of absence of the dukkha, or cessation of the dukkha, and the truth of path to achieve the cessation of dukkha. And this is the standard way that we present Four Noble Truths. But underlying this Four Noble Truths, there's a model, there's a structure model that we should pay attention. I think in the article also, there's some emphasis on that, but in our class I would like to pay more attention to this. So the first Noble Truth, recognizing that suffering exists, recognizing the dukkha exists. So it is like recognition of the problem. And the second one is identifying the cause or causes. Could be many causes. And then the third one will be discerning the solution or a way out, discerning a way out, and then path to achieve that resolution, path to achieve that way out, a technique, method to achieve that way out. So the Buddha has used this model to understand and to find solution to the very basic problem for sentient beings. But if you really understand this model, I think we can use this model to understand and solve any problem, right? And first, understand the problem in detail, in its widths, and everything, and then identify causes, because the problem is only the outcome, and there are many other causes that gave rise to such a condition. And then you identify the causes. Once you identify the causes and conditions that give rise to that particular situation, then you can imply what would be the solution. When you remove the causes and conditions, the absence of those causes and conditions will be the solution. And then our problem is how to remove those causes and conditions that give rise to that problem. So we need to follow a technique, a method, a procedure, a set of steps of some program, right? So this is the model that Buddha has used. So it's very important, and of course some people say that this is the Buddha has used some kind of medical model, how the doctors will diagnose the disease, and then but I think even not only within the medical field, but even the social field and any other field, this is a very important model that we can use. So if whenever you encounter problem, and you can use this model to understand it and find a solution for it, and then lay out a strategy to overcome that. The other problem that we encounter with the Four Noble Truths is of course, when we translate dukkha into suffering, or let's say unsatisfactoriness. And so the first truth is the truth of unsatisfactoriness, and truth of the cause of that unsatisfactoriness, and the way out of that unsatisfactoriness, and the path and strategies to go way out of for that unsatisfactoriness. So people will find that there's always referring to suffering, always referring to dukkha. So people can get an idea that Buddhism is talking all about suffering. In one of your comments, I saw that one person has commented that when she started to read Buddhism, and she feel very pessimistic because it's always talking about suffering, always talking about problems. But if you only pay attention to the first truth, like understanding the dukkha and understanding the cause of dukkha, why we are doing that? In order to do the second set of truth, which is to identify the way out and also the strategy to way out. So I would like to rephrase this Four Noble Truth. Instead of suffering, we can use happiness, or maybe let's say lasting ease or peace. The first truth is the absence of lasting peace, which is dukkha. Okay, lasting happiness. So let's get rid of the word suffering. The first truth is the reality is we always experience absence of lasting peace or ease. So that is the problem. Absence of happiness is the problem. Okay, the first one. Second one is cause for that absence of happiness. And the third one becomes the presence of happiness, the presence of ease and peace. And then the Noble Eightfold Path becomes the path to happiness, the way to achieve that ease and happiness. So now everywhere you find is happiness, right? Not suffering. Yeah, but it's the same truth, right? Present in different way. So absence of happiness, cause for that, the presence of full happiness and freedom, and then path to achieve happiness. So in that sense, if we find, this is talking about happiness. The whole purpose of even understanding the dukkha is to get rid of that. And so the whole teaching is about achieving happiness. Not simply pleasurable happiness, but more lasting happiness. And actually, this is what Buddha is doing. He doesn't want us to suffer. That's why he pays so much attention. Like doctors talk about sicknesses, and not because they want us to suffer from illnesses or sicknesses. The very reason they're talking about it is that they want us to get rid of that. So that's the goal, right? Last week we talked about Fibergates. So there's a relationship between Fibergates and the Four Noble Truths. These teachings are interrelated. They're talking about the same process and from different angles. I would like to emphasize that relationship. Then you will organize your understanding in that way. So when Buddha talked about the dukkha, and he identified 3 levels: the ordinary dukkha that we encounter, when we encounter certain events in our life, your family came to see you and they are departing tomorrow, and then so you experience dukkha. That's like ordinary dukkha, and you get sick. So based on events. And then also there's a other level of dukkha called dukkha produced by change, which means that you may be going through a pleasurable experience, but that's only the part of the because you know that pleasurable you are going to
The situation's going to change.
situation going to change. So the suffering is almost inherent there, right? And so eventually the other side of the coin will be the suffering, no matter how happy it is, because it's going to change. So it's a deeper level of dukkha, that dukkha produced by change. Is nice, pleasant, yes?
In your first example, in the ordinary dukkha, it also seemed like, well, my family's leaving. That's a change.
Yeah, okay, that's a change. Maybe.
So what's kind of-
Yeah, maybe like physical pains.
Yeah.
Like what you call suffering,
Growing old.
Or,
Yeah, what you call suffering, it could be the ordinary dukkha.
or falling down.
Yeah, falling down, pain, yeah.
Well, it's actually my family leaving makes me happy. Just joking.
Okay, the deepest level is the dukkha produced by the grasping the 5 aggregates. That is the hard part of this. Grasping to the 5 aggregates, which means the holding into 5 aggregates, or creating identification with the 5 aggregates. And so when Buddha explains the dukkha, and first he starts with very simple examples, like very family examples that we all have. Like old age is suffering, old age is dukkha, and sickness is dukkha. And then you go a little bit deeper, having to depart from the people you like is dukkha, having to be with the people that you don't like is dukkha, and not getting what you want is dukkha. And then after giving those examples, and then at the end he said, in brief, the clinging to 5 aggregates itself is dukkha, and that is the fundamental, the deepest level. Those are like few manifestations of the deeper one. Yes?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Aggregates always makes things confusing for me.
Yeah.
Would it be the same thing to say clinging to the senses?
The senses is one aspect of 5 aggregates, which is rupa.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, so 5 aggregates refer to 5 different aspects of our being. Our senses, our perceptions, our sensations, our habitual patterns that we have developed in our consciousness, right? So, and then not only we have those things, we also have very strong identification of them. We identify, we have created this very ownership. We think that our memory is ours. Until you get done. Our memory is ours, our knowledge is ours, our body is ours. When we have a particular pattern we call character, we think this is my nature, my personality, my character. So everybody has created a very strong identity with the 5 aggregates. And in that identity is itself is creating this dukkha, because it creates a need to maintain this, which is very hard to do, but we all do it. And that very effort to maintain this constructed identity. It is falling apart all the time, but we try it all the time. That very effort is dukkha. So now you see the relationship between Fibergates and the dukkha, right? Yes, Greg, yeah?
But that identity or unique self or false self
Yeah.
has karma attached to it.
Yeah, that is sankhara,
And
yes.
Karma follows something, and something gets reincarnated.
Yeah, oh
That's
yeah.
what
we
want.
have
Yeah.
to,
I know when it happens.
we have to find a way to
Yeah.
accommodate the middle path,
Yes,
which is between annihilation and eternalism.
yes.
I don't know that we've done that
Okay.
in our discussions.
Okay. Do you think that the readings that you read this week was helpful to come to the middle ground?
Yes, but not necessarily in relation to the way we've been discussing the aggregates.
Okay. So I think the aggregates is a process. It's a process. It continues from moment to moment. And because of that, and the very reason it continues is because of the grasping, because of the glue that we our grasping, and then it continues, and therefore, yeah, of course, it has an identity in the sense that it is a continuum. Though there's no a sense that is unchanging inside it, but it's a continuum. Therefore, there's an identity. There's an identity to the Fibergates that this. The sitting here, and there's an identity to Fibergates sitting over there. The identity is the continuity. There's a continuum. So therefore, there's a constant construction, constant renewing of these aggregates, and so therefore there's a process. So we don't say there's nothing. Of course, there's a continuing process, and that process continues not even until the death, and even after the death, if we have not overcome that identity, self-centeredness.
It's almost like a company, like H&R Block is the same company now as it was 80 years ago, but none of those people 80 years ago are here now.
Yeah, I think it's same like Steelers, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But some people do recall their past lives, do recall all his past
Yeah. We can go back to understand the Steelers, who were Steelers in 60 years ago. They were there, but let's say, so we can go back and trace the history, and that's what enlightened beings are doing, how that process continues. So they go and see it, but that doesn't. Yeah. So.
And why are we practicing?
That whole continuation of that whole process is kind of burning.
It's burning.
Yeah, burning. It's not satisfactory. It's dukkha. So it's also like
It's all burning. Buddha said the world is a flame.
Yeah. So I think there's a better way. We can continue to reproduce this again and again, and then make that effort, make that tiredness, make that burden, or we can let go of it and be free. So. Buddha is not imposing us to do that, but if you find that this is burdensome, there's a way out.
Well, I'm practicing for a better future life.
Yeah, that's quite okay. And actually, that is the whole idea of gradual path. And Buddha realized that this is not something that people will suddenly do, and even cognitively, like conceptually, even though we understand. There's not only ignorance, there's also craving part to it. It is really difficult to stop everything right there, So we have to take a gradual approach. So in the gradual path, what we first do, we first make this process a wholesome process. Okay, so we have habitual patterns. We first make these habitual patterns wholesome patterns. And then eventually we can make that a non-process, so to speak. But and then many of the traditional Buddhists are following that gradual path, but having that basic understanding. Yes.
Bhante, Greg just said something that really creates a lot of trouble for me. If I start thinking about I'm practicing for a better future life, then I let myself enter into this, and I struggle so much to get rid of that.
Mm.
But as long as I'm talking about a life before and a life after, there's that connection to my life now somehow. And that makes me feel like there's a self.
Yeah, so there's a
And-
constructed self.
Yes. And I have to not think about that, or I get wound up in it.
It's always best is to focus on right now in the
Yeah.
present. Whatever comes, will come. Yeah, but we are responsible in a way. As long as we have this process, we are responsible to direct this process. Hopefully to a better end at least, or to the end itself. Yeah.
The point of practice isn't to negate the self. The point of practice is to enable one to realize that the self is constructed, is
Yes.
not inherent,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
not to grasp onto it.
Yeah.
You use the self to the extent that it is useful. I have a name,
Yeah.
I have a social security
Yeah.
number, but I realize that is...
And also you have compassion, other qualities that can be expressed to the other beings.
Yeah, but that's, I don't make more out of that than it actually is. I don't think that it's somehow deeper and inherent when I know that it will change at some point.
So I think the important point is that the Buddhist teaching of non-self is not saying that there's no self at all. What it's saying that the self that we consider as self is a constructed self. And we continue to construct that. And so there's a self, but it's constructed, it's not given, it's not like essential, it's a constructed. When we continue to construct it,
You know that it's going to change. It's not
yeah, it's not from, yeah.
I have one question.
Yes,
Something
okay.
that bothered me about the question that he brought up was when you go through, there's like no continuity. Is there like
The
when,
continuity, yeah, definitely.
but when if the personality that I have constructed now, it
Yeah.
totally goes away when I die, then
it will. I mean, we wish it that happened, but
it doesn't.
but it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, then maybe we can go to the one other question that Ellen has asked about whether our past learning will carry into the rebirth. So just like we maintain our identity, we maintain our being from this moment to the next moment, right now in the present moment, and if we haven't spiritually evolved, spiritually transcended that self-centeredness, the moment we die, our mind is not going to become enlightened automatically there. This is, I mean, it will continue the same way. So just like we are moving from this moment to the next moment, maintaining our identity, and particularly in that moment, and that will bring us to the next topic, which is the trishna, the driving force of everything is this craving, strong craving, work as a force for the consciousness, to propel further, because we haven't given up the craving for maintaining self-identity, and it's common with all beings, what we call.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what would you call that? If there's no soul, no self, no...
Five
well,
aggregates.
it's just five
Five
aggregates. There's
aggregates.
nothing inside the five aggregates that moves on. It's just...
No, I mean, these five aggregates produce a similar five aggregates.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's like a photocopy machine.
Okay.
What was the last we produced? So, of course, the past learnings, and not only learnings, habits, inclinations, and those things are carried over because it's the same process. Yeah, and when you are in the same family, you have different inclinations. Even you are brought up in the same environment. Even twins, have different inclinations, different, preferences. Even for food, those are like, early trainings, like early habits. So we carry. That is why it's so important. Even no matter how much we can practice, it's good to practice right here. Whatever amount we can practice, we carry over. If we cannot, actually carry over whatever evolution, whatever progress we made, we'll carry on to the next, because the process continues.
That's one of the things I like about Buddhism is that you're responsible in a way.
Yeah, definitely. So the other term I would like to pay attention is tanha or trishna in Sanskrit, which is the craving, which is the second noble truth. and which translates as thirst, and this is the cause of suffering, or the main condition, prime cause of suffering. And so this is divided into three parts: thirst for sensual pleasure, that we all talk about, that craving. But deeper in that, you also have thirst for maintaining self-identity, or thirst for existing even after death. And people are concerned about their self-identity even after they die, right? And I mean, of course, that is. I mean, we plan, what tomb we want to have, after we die, right? So I mean, that's only showing us, that we all have that, need. It's a strong need for everybody until people become enlightened. So this whole thirst for maintaining self-identity.
Isn't that why the pyramids were built?
Yeah. Oh yeah, pyramids were built. Yeah,
The
yeah.
pharaoh would never be forgotten.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that. So that shows that how strong is this craving in our human evolution. And I would say actually the whole theory of evolution, if you want a Buddhist respond to that whole theory, the theory of evolution will say that the environmental condition will decide, will move things, and different species will come out, different organs of the body will come out depending on different environmental conditions. But Buddha will add, very important condition for that, which is the craving. The driving force of evolution is not simply the environmental condition, but inner craving. The need produce realities. Our need to see produce our eyes. Our need to smell produce our nose. So this is a very strong force in that sense. Though there's no the permanent entity, but this need and thirst is producing, and even producing lives like we. And about other important, there could be flip side to this thirst, which is the Buddha has recognized as the third form, the third manifestation, quite weird manifestation of the third. It's thirst for annihilation of self. Very tricky. Like it's like you identify that there's a self, and then you decide, I don't want this. So in both sense, you are based on a belief on a strong self. And in first case, you want to maintain it, and second case, you already have admitted and believed that there's a self, but you don't want to carry, you want to destroy it, and it's like suicidal mood. And that's also craving, according to Buddha. Craving for annihilation of a self. So you see how difficult it is to manage, like how difficult it is to practice, and how difficult to understand, because those days, and that is why the whole idea of eternalism and nihilism was there. And people who have this need for maintaining self-identity and eternal life, they become eternalism, and people do not want it, become nihilism. So there's a really delicate, tricky point to come to the middle point. That is what the enlightened beings are doing. Even the annihilation of the self is a craving. You first admit there's there's a permanent self, and then you don't want to have it. You want to stop it. Yes. Yes.
Wasn't there a period in existentialism where there was suicide in France? Existentialists. Familiar with that?
No. Well, it's gotten a bad rep as being like the downer of the philosophical movement. That's frowned on it.
I think there was a period of people in France committed existentialist suicide.
Suicide,
I'm not,
finishing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not putting down existentialism, believe me.
Yeah.
But I think that there was.
There was, yeah.
I can't explain.
So it can have that weird manifestation, of the craving. But again, without our knowing, in a very subtle sense, it's also based on a belief of a permanent self.
Suicide's not an escape, though.
Huh?
Suicide's not an escape, though.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the thirst for annihilation of self when you are in a normal part of existence, not when you're desperately ill?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So is that thirst Where is that thirst in the continuum
Yeah.
of being healthy and self-actualized and being a person at the end of your life and not wanting to continue it for reasons of suffering and being ill and being a burden and
I think it's an unfortunate situation. We have to be really, compassionate, for that kind of people. But if you really think in deeply what the why that feeling is coming, I don't want to be a burden for others, and so again, in a very subtle sense, you have that, that self-notion very strongly there. And if you just let the nature to take care of it, if people can take care, they will. If not, let it be, right? And of course the problem comes with the pain. But even the reason that it's a deeper sense. Sensations are a really deep topic. But there's a way to disidentify with sensation, disidentify with even with the pain. So it's an unfortunate situation, but still based on craving. Yeah. Okay, since we don't have enough time to go in detail, let's talk the nibbana, or the third noble truth. It's also called its cool state, actually, siti bhuta, in Buddha's word. Coolness in the sense of extinguishing the fire of craving. That craving as a way of burning, way of continually arising, and the cooling of that is called nibbana. And then that brings me to the issue. I think Samuel has asked a question about the unborn, unconditioned state. I think we don't have enough time to go into detail, but when there are conditions and fire is burning, the nibbana is the cooling of the fire. And so there are no individual fire there. As there are, so when somebody attains enlightenment and he's not in an individual anymore. And what is next is not something that as individuals we can talk. We can talk, but this. It's, no matter what we talk, we are still talking as an individual, But when you become unconditioned, and so you cannot talk about that person who become unconditioned. He has become unconditioned, so there's no identity to talk about that particular person.
You're talking about a phenomenon that cannot be known as an individual.
Yes.
Therefore, you can't really translate it into.
Yeah, but I think, but in Buddha's discourses, and also by the utterances of many other enlightened ones, and they have spoken about their condition of experience, their nature of experience, which brings like this kind of idea like coolness, this freedom, this limitlessness, So we may be able to have some guess, some idea, but of course, if you know the suffering. If you know the dukkha, you can imagine the absence of dukkha, right? That's the easiest way to figure this out. The complete absence. Okay, let's go to the last part, which is the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. You have read that. I just want to emphasize the three aspects of this path: the moral behavior, the mental culture, and wisdom. And so, whole path can be divided into these three aspects. The moral behavior, mental culture, and wisdom. But we start with the initial wisdom. The first item of right understanding and right thoughts are initial wisdom. And right now, and that's what we are developing. We are developing a kind of understanding, understanding that, this is how suffering arises, and this is how our mind works. You may not have fully experienced it, but you are developing some kind of conceptual understanding. And based on that understanding, you set your goals, your intentions. Intentions of letting go, intentions of making things simple in your life, knowing that, owning many things is not producing happiness, so you have intentions of letting go. You may still own things, but you have intention and goals. And you have intentions of compassion, and you have intentions of non-violence. And you you have that orientation, and that's where you start. And then you align your behavior along these lines. You align your speech, your actions, and your livelihood in a way that will not produce any more suffering, that is, produce suffering to yourself, to others. And you align our behavior according to your understanding and your orientations, and you try to adjust this. And based on those moral behavior, and you also working with your mind and make a big change in the makeup of your mind through the right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So we can talk about these things later. So it's more like working with the makeup of the mind and changing that. And once you change that, your initial right understanding and right intentions become your own insight, your own realization. And those intentions and goals become your very nature of the mind. But these things are working to the extent you have right understanding and right intention, and you will have right speech. To that extent, you will have more freedom, more stability, that you can look into your mind and change it. So little bit you change it, you are enhancing your right understanding. The more you enhance your right understanding, you're coming back to your speech, more right actions. So it's like a loop going again, and ultimately what's going to happen is that initial wisdom will transform into a developed wisdom, which is insight, compassion, with experience and freedom. So, but this is actually addressing the very different aspects of our personality, and that's what I want to emphasize. And this is a very strategic method the Buddha is using. First, it addresses our cognitive reorientation, and with intention our emotional reorientation and our behavioral change, and then in the deeper level, changing of our mental makeup, which will again in turn help us to enhance our understanding and realization. So this actually addressing three aspects of our being. So it's a very systematic practice. So three aspects: moral behavior, mental culture, and wisdom. Which has initial wisdom. You start with initial wisdom and going to develop wisdom. So transforming from a self-centered person to selfless. I don't know if you can call it person, but just like conventional person, a process, yeah, and which insight and wisdom. So these are three aspects: morality, mental culture, wisdom. Again, wisdom feed the morality, mental culture, and wisdom. So it's like a loop. So I want to have like last discussion about the challenges that you encounter practicing this path. So in your responses, I have found number of challenges that you like to point out. The simple ones is like difficulty in letting go of the past, and lack of motivation, and some even has nicotine as a challenge, and difficult to cease to be materialistic. So of course, you come little more to the Buddhist center, you get rid of this. But I would like to pay attention what the Alan has said here. It's like, and Alan is saying that I have to go to work, I have a chores to do at home, and I have to. So with these things, how can I practice? So the reason that I want to is A-L-A-N.
Different
Alan, okay. So the reason I want to emphasize that, we don't think that your practice is outside of your life. It is while you are really doing your job, you have to practice your right speech, right action, and right livelihood. You see, right livelihood is a part of the practice. So your job is a part of this spiritual practice. And do your job in a way that will not produce suffering to others and to suffering to yourself. And adjusting that, of course we can talk in detail about this later. So the chores is a very good time to practice your compassion, your mindfulness, and it's right action, and also being there, right mindfulness. So our practice is not beyond our life. It's with family life, how you treat your partner, and how you communicate with your colleagues, and how you work in your work environment, and all these things are part of the practice. And this is about living all these things. The other one is, I think Samuel has a point that when you do not have clear idea of the enlightenment, whatever, like lack of concreteness, what I'm going to achieve, it as a way of the progress may be hampered by a lack of concreteness, right? And I think for that, we don't have to think about that 100%, the perfect state. I mean, we can have a goal, but I think how we can produce concreteness is that when you have glimpses of experience, when you be away from craving, at least temporarily, when you can be away from greed and hatred, how do you feel for that moment? What freedom, what lightness, what ease we experience, right? So that is only reducing 1% of greed for 10 seconds. So let's focus on reducing that 5%. So we will have 5% of freedom, lightness, happiness, and wisdom, right? And let's increase it to 10%. So we will have 10% of freedom, lightness, wisdom, and realization. So I don't know, maybe I think for me 10% is really great, and of course eventually we will go to 100%. So I think that's how I would like to make the concreteness. Yeah.
I guess part of what I was referring to was when you talk about training.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
and the word training is used in many different aspects.
Yeah.
Athletic training or training for artistic performance, whatever.
Yeah.
Normally when you're training under those conditions, it's everything's relatively cut and dry. You say, I'm going to run 1,000 miles. Today I'll run 10 miles. Tomorrow I'll run 7 miles. The next day I'll run 12 miles. And you know at each step of the way what's going on. When you talk about nirvana and the unconditioned,
Yeah.
and you admit, you really can't understand these experiences at your present level of understanding.
Yeah.
It gets very nebulous.
Yeah.
And I've often been told, when I'm dealing in spiritual situations, that if you think you're enlightened, you're almost certainly not enlightened.
No. I mean, not really, but of course, let's say if I want to proclaim that I'm enlightened, and the very need that I want to proclaim shows that I haven't overcome my self-centeredness. But I think the Buddha started with right here. What we have right now is dukkha. It starts with dukkha, and what we are aiming is cessation of the dukkha, right? So what it looks like, I mean, it will be whatever. So it started with what we have right now, which is starting with our own conditions, which is dukkha in many ways. So we reduce it, and the training helps us to reduce it first, and then, yeah.
Is that what's meant by nirvana is samsara? You start where you are.
Yes. Yeah. It's right here. Yeah. And that is why Buddha started with dukkha, not with enlightenment. He didn't talk about enlightenment first. He talked about what we have right now, and then let's do something about it. Yes.
Bhante, is this the Noble Eightfold Path? Is that does that unfold through one's cognition, but also through practice?
Definitely. Yeah,
It's
it's a combination, definitely, combination. Yeah. Not only cognition, actually also like heart, like, right intentions, like compassion. And so cognitive aspect, emotional aspect, and practice aspect. And then of course deeper mental training aspect, which feeds back to each other. And so like a spiral.
The mental training feeds into the
Understanding, and then it changes the behavior, and the more behavior, it's like a spiral loop.
Okay. The dukkha can also be considered in a positive way too, because you think about people who have a very serious disease and they have a lengthy period of suffering, and they gain so much understanding and
they think seriously
they
about life,
learn.
right?
So
Yeah, there are many cancer patients,
yeah.
and after they got cancer, they
They
think seriously about life, and
That's
they
right.
make their life so much meaningful and so much And if they didn't have cancer, they might have lived
That's right.
very in what you call
Yeah.
unmindful, you
Yeah.
know, bad life, definitely.
But they even
Yeah.
recognize that and say,
Yeah,
this has
actually
been a
there's-
good thing
Yeah,
for
actually,
me.
there's one discourse Buddha saying that, you know, in not every case, but in certain cases, dukkha produce confidence in the practice.
That's
Yeah.
why I love, well, for me,
Yeah.
learning this extended definition takes away some of that negativity that on first blush
Blush,
you
yeah.
see
And
suffering,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just seems to turn it around,
Yeah.
and you can really
Yeah.
build in a very positive.
Yeah, like this. you
Meaning
know.
to this,
Yeah,
yeah.
happiness, yeah. Since we don't have time, the last comments by Michelle, Marcel, is about, you know, her difficulty in practicing this in this culture, right? Right, Marcel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's hard to separate oneself totally from the culture without appearing to be an outcast. Or like, so do you think that, you know, in this particular culture that you are in, it's difficult to engage in this practice?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, just the built-in obsolescence of the products that I have to
Oh,
engage
yeah,
in
yeah.
every day, and then
Yeah.
when you look at a catalog or look online to buy something,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to constantly be getting something better. Oh, I'm used to this, but no, you have to use this now. And, I mean, the constant adjustment,
Yeah.
and then the constant, I mean, with people and buying houses and cars. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, I've absented myself from that line of
Okay.
living for a long, long, long time.
Consumerism. In a way.
I haven't even bought coffee tables, and I'm in my 50s, okay? I mean, I'm using the coffee tables my mom and dad gave me that they bought when I was little. I've never bought, like, and I've never got into that whole, I need to buy stuff, and I've often seen as a bit of an outcast, a bit of an
Yeah.
eclectic
But
person.
I think
but
this trend of consumerism also produce a group of people who are aware of this, and then that very
Right,
trend
right.
is helping us to turn around. So
Right.
in a way, actually,
it's
I
actually
mean,
like she said.
yeah, I mean, like in developing countries, it's really difficult to get this message passed through, you know, because they are having that, you know, nice, you know, vision about, you know, having all, you know, needs.
So maybe it's a
met.
part of evolution.
Yeah, yeah.
Of
Yeah.
everything evolving, I guess.
Yeah. So.
But it's hard.
Since
It's
we
been
are,
hard for me.
yeah, out of time. Yes.
Just one
yes,
brief
yeah,
thing, and then
yeah.
you didn't get to read my last answer, but one of the things that are frustrating for me, it seems like Buddhism can sometimes be more of an intellectual pursuit rather than a pursuit of the heart and mind and stuff, and that gets really frustrating sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
'Cause
It
it's not-
has emphasis of
I can't think my
understanding.
way. I can't think my way into enlightenment. I have to live my life.
Definitely,
Best I can.
yeah,
It's a good
definitely,
That's a
yeah,
good
definitely. There's no way.
comment,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not a conceptual change. Yeah, it's going beyond that. You know, we need to have engaged practice. Yeah. So going back to our objectives, I heard that you can do these things now. Do you think so? Identify the basic problem that the teachings of the Buddha address. Dukkha. They describe the basic model underlying the Four Noble Truths. Remember the problem, the cause of problem, solution, the strategies for solution. And explain the three aspects of the gradual path. Anybody remember that?
Moral.
Good, moral behavior, morality, mental development, mental culture, you know, meditation, and the wisdom. Good. I think we achieved our objectives. Thank you very much. You know, thank you. Sorry, you know, rushing, you know, but you know, you have to finish, you know, within 1 hour. But you don't have to rush because today we are all lucky to have another visiting monk. You know, that will, you know, you can bring all of your questions, you know, to him. So if you need a break, do you think you need a break for a few minutes, or I can bring? Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid that they will leave. Yeah.
Okay, what's going on tomorrow from 1
Ah, yes,
30 to-
yeah. So yeah, I will.
You're gonna talk about that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
if you're free, you know, please.
Yes, I'm free.
So I will bring him. Okay.
I have to ask her if I'm free. Am I free?
You want to go? You want to stay?
I'm sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to have some drinks and, you know, water, just have them.
See?
Yeah, I feel like I need some basic instructional piece that might help solidify some of my understanding.
Oh,
This
good.
is still working on.
Well, it's always, I'm always have been a group.
That's why I
so
think,
much from being.
that's why I have a difficult time with like the silent retreat.